Let's have these babies.
I'm in labor. Fight for that front spot.
Obviously, we're not at home. So we're not at home the way we wanted to be. We're not at home the way we were planning on being. We're at a hospital. And it was hard. It's a long story, but 31 hours of labor later, and we weren't doing so good. I think our other one is coming right now. And this is what the new normal is going to be like. Every 2 seconds I have to start over a new thing. So we've got 2 girls, Raylan and Remy, both healthy. They're just small, 36 weeks and 2 days, and we got to the hospital just in time for me to get a emergency C-section. He calls it an urgent C-section. Sorry, they call it an urgent C-section because I wasn't totally passed out. However,
C-section, they put you under general anesthesia and you go out completely, and I wouldn't even be able to be in the room.
By the time we got to the hospital, I was out of it completely. I was not myself. I scared everybody. I was in transition, so that's always a hard part anyway. But I had taken 2 Benadryls. Shouldn't have taken 2. The midwives gave me 2. Just realizing. Like, in the last day, we've kind of gone over what went kind of wrong. And it was whenever I took the Benadryl that things really got really bad. However, I had been stalled at a 7 for a while. And I was putting so much pressure on my cervix that it was swelling. So it was actually doing worse at the end of all of those contractions. And so by the time we got to this point of exhaustion, my midwife had done everything she could. I had done everything I could. But things were just, they were taking forever to progress, and I had hit too much maternal exhaustion that I couldn't do it.
You stayed dilated and ate for about 3 hours.
Yeah. But I was 100% effaced, so that's a big deal.
And I know that partially that is why what kept you going and what kept Rosemary trying to go too. Because you were 100% effaced. You just...
But that's when things went bad. When the cervix started to swell, the effacement made it. I mean, there was no point in having 100% effacement.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been an emotional 2 days. This is the official first day. We had 3 days. We started labor on Thursday. It's now Saturday, and we had our babies yesterday afternoon. Didn't even have hospital bags packed, so my family has been running around like chickens with their heads cut off, but they're really...
It's so great.
They've been so great, and I think, they just wish they could come in and see. Like, that's the stupid thing about these policies and COVID.
They're doing what they can.
They're like only
For us.
allowing 1 visitor, which I would be pissed if Seth wasn't here, but Seth shouldn't be considered a visitor, you know?
Agreed.
And especially with twins, I feel like you should have at least 3 people. Mom, dad, and like a mom.
But I told your sister this, but I mean, as frustrating as it is, I also kind of see it as a blessing. Because this gives us an opportunity to practice with just me and you.
Yeah.
Having both of them. And having help if we need it.
Just from strangers.
Granted, yes, it's not from your parents.
But everyone's been so nice. it is good that we have some support, and they tell us, okay, you need to feed them by this time, and you need to, blah blah blah. But there are other things that I'm like, well, you don't really know us that well to know what we would choose. But that's the standard form of care.
Yeah, I prayed over them right after they were born, and I was standing outside of the nursery watching them, check them over, and listen to their hearts and things. I was praying over them, just saying, okay, God, you're in charge of them when they're in the nursery. I'm trusting that you will cover them so that nothing weird happens to them. They don't do anything weird to them. Not that I believe they would, but I was praying that God would do that for them. Because a lot of the reason was I wanted to be able to have peace about sending them there so that we could rest.
Yeah, after the labor we went through, it was definitely necessary to send them to the nursery last night. And every 3 hours they came in and we fed them. And I will say it was not a restful night because I had compression sock things at the beginning of the night, and then my nurse came in to check with me, and I said, is there a way I can get these things off? She said, yeah, you're allowed to opt out of wearing these. I'm like, so for like 4 hours, I had these stupid things on that I didn't think I needed, and they were keeping me up, and then by the time we got those things off and I actually thought I could get some sleep, there was like a shift change and a nurse introduced herself, and then the girls came, and then Raylan took forever to eat, and then Remy took forever to eat, to where they were actually lapping each other. Like the nurse would take one, and then by the time she brought back the other, that's when the one was done with feeding, and it was just kind of crazy. And then finally, like 3 o'clock, I got my catheter out. That's a glamorous thought. Well, because a cesarean, you have to get a catheter, and that was kind of weird, and by the grace of God, I didn't freak out. But once I got that thing out, and we kind of had a 2-hour break between that happening and the girls coming back for their early morning feed. It was a good 2 hours of sleep that went by so fast. And I've only slept 2 hours in 3 days.
Well, and I'm praying that tonight you can sleep and clean your feedings a lot better, because you will have less people checking you.
I don't have an IV anymore. I don't have.
Connected to you.
Thank the Lord.
You'll be able to.
I was able to take a shower. I wasn't covered in amniotic fluid and bath water and whatever the heck they use as sterilizer for the cesarean.
And I think, at least with Remy, I think you even might be able to kind of be half asleep while you're feeding her.
I'm getting pretty good at sleeping through a breastfeed. Right now I'm breastfeeding.
Because she is so...
Are you done? Or are you just kind of...
And you're getting much better very quickly.
You think you're done, or you think you're gonna... Oh, you're gonna stretch? Oh, you're so cute. So... ultimately, it all works out. I've dealt with a lot of emotions. I was very much in a daze when it all happened. I was so exhausted. And I got tons of encouraging texts when things were going down. People knew what was going on. They knew we were in the hospital. And everyone who was just so sweet. And they were like, you're not a failure. And I don't think I am. It's been a hard thing to have gone through that for essentially nothing. However, I will say, getting myself to have at least, been at an 8 and 100% effaced with no medications, makes me feel a bit like a badass, so, And then, the girls weren't drugged up at all. I got the spinal tap, and they got out of me in, less than a minute. And then we were on the road to recovery. But the girls are totally fine. They're both eating well. They're passing their tests. And I think we're all going to get to go home at the same time. They're just small. Raylan's 4.2 pounds. Remy's 5.8. And we gotta get some preemie clothes. However, that is one of the things our families are doing. They are they just don't know what to do. They can't come and see us at the hospital, and so they went out and apparently went ham on the preemie clothes. So it is Monday, and it's about 12:45. The girls just passed their car seat check, and we're getting discharged very soon. The pediatrician came this morning and said, I don't see any reason why they can't go home, even though they're small. They made weight. They started gaining weight last night. My milk came in yesterday morning. They've been eating super well, super good at latching. Even Raylan, who was having a little bit more trouble. I haven't even really needed the lactation consultants. Ooh, you got a little bit of milk. I am not really nursing Remy. She's kind of just pacifying. Hey. Oh, goodness. Oh, big time. Yeah. We're leaving. It's a process. Some lady just came in and gave us those balloons with some kits. Remy's over here, Raylan's over here, and our pastors, John and Debbie Lindell in Springfield, sent us flowers. It's been a good... Gosh, it's been a good birth. Gosh. It's been a process, but God is still so good. I got a baby. I got babies. We're all going home together. They passed their car seat check. You guys are so cool. You're miracle babies. I guess Raylan and Remy are now a little bit lighter than they were when they first were born, but they're gaining weight again. Raylan's 3 pounds, 14 ounces. Remy's 4 pounds. Well, I guess almost 5 pounds again. But they're gonna gain weight again really fast, so. It's been a good hospital stay, surprisingly. Feeling good.
Alright. Ready to go home.
I am. They don't know what home is. Oh my goodness. Look at these little buns. I'm just wearing a nursing bra. They did so good. I mean, it started off rough and Grandma, we're not super sure what she wants to be called, but we're calling her Grandma right now because she calls herself Grandma to the dogs. My mom held Raylan from like 11 to 2 to get some, so the little girl could get some sleep. She was a trooper just sitting here holding the baby. I held Remy for about an hour until I had a mental breakdown just because I needed to sleep really bad, and I couldn't. But I got to a point where Seth held one, Mom held the other. I slept for like an hour. Then we had the 3 a.m. feed, and we put them in some clothes, and everything looks like it's kosher now. We found a good flow, and we managed to get sleep, and they managed to sleep in their bassinet once they got in clothes. And they're just so cute. I can't handle my sweet little babies. I can't believe I made that. So Mom and I are gonna go to Target. Elena hung out with us all day and held babies, and I felt like a person. And me and Seth managed to take a nap, and I feel pretty good. I think my biggest concern has been when I take an oxy to numb the pain, I feel mentally foggy and then I start to get emotional. And so I stopped taking Oxy. And our entire front yard is covered in red leaves. And there's a yellow tree, and I'm very excited about fall. It's like I'm finally coming into the world, and it's only 5 days after. I'm leaving the girls with Dad and Seth, and I'm not emotional because I'm thinking they actually get to spend some bonding time with those girls, and they love them so much. I'm so happy. So we're gonna go look for clothes for me and a couple things, and it's gonna be good. So Remy just had her first chiropractor visit, and she's already feeling pretty unwound. She unwound on her own on her neck, but she has to come back next week to finish that whole thing in her sacrum because he had to manually do that for her. She didn't want to do it. But he said it usually takes about 2 visits to get the full adjustment done from birth. But she was carrying all the weight of her sister, and she was dealing with a lot more trauma on her back than her sister, who sleeps like a champ in a bassinet, and she does not. So Dr. Carson did confirm that that is definitely why she's having trouble in the bassinet. Man, how do people do this without grandparents? Or people who love them? People showed up yesterday with groceries and meals because I sent out the bat signal last night saying, guys, we are starving, and I am always freaking breastfeeding, which is fine. I love it. I love breastfeeding. My journey has been so easy. Everything is not hurting, which is amazing, and I'm able to double breastfeed pretty easily. But with that, I am so thirsty all the time, and I'm so hungry all the time, and I just don't even have the energy to like make anything or even eat anything that isn't just like a protein shake or protein bar, just a quick hit of protein to get myself some energy. But now we're about to go home, and then Raylan has a follow-up echo, and we're not too worried about it. We believe it's going to be healed because God is good, and he's been so good through this whole thing. So many people, we're coming out of the bubble, so many people are saying how rare it is to have these tiny, tiny babies discharged so soon after birth, like as if they were just a 7-pounder. And we never had any complications. It was as if we had 2 7-pound babies, happy and healthy and ready to go home after 3 days in the hospital. And they passed everything they needed to, with the exception of Raylan and her echo. But that was still not concerning to the doctors enough to put her in. She never went to the NICU. No one ever went to the NICU. No one ever needed a heating lamp. Everything has been just super, super smooth. And it just points to a good God. We're good. I feel more like myself today. I think a lot of that has to do with being off the pain medication. I think I'd rather feel uncomfortable in my stitches than feel the fog of my brain. I think I just needed a minute to really think about what God has been doing in this birth story, because it's still unfolding. Last night, Rosemary, my midwife who was supposed to deliver my babies and who had gotten to know them in the womb, came to visit and see them, and it felt full circle. It felt good. I felt at peace. And she was so grateful that I felt at peace. She's like, I just prayed that you would feel peace over this situation. But she gave me information that was really cool. The night before my water broke, we did the Group B strep test, which is a big deal if you test positive for it and the babies come through the vaginal canal. She told me, guess what came back today? It was yesterday. It's like 5 days after. I said, my Group B strep test came back positive. She said, how did you know? I said, well, that's the only thing we were waiting on. She said, that's a big deal. If we would have pushed through and had a vaginal birth at home with no NICU time or NICU on deck, especially with their birth weights, the girls wouldn't be okay. I can't tell you why I had to go through 31 hours of labor, or why it took so long for us to get to the hospital, and why it took so long for everything to happen. God doesn't really give me all that information, but I feel peace knowing He was good in it. I mean, God is good, and the circumstances happen. The circumstances don't point to if God is good. So I feel a lot of peace, and today my healing has been so much better. Yesterday I woke up really early. Girls weren't screaming or anything. They were peaceful, and everyone was asleep. And I was having emotions, and I was feeling postpartum depression or whatever, blues, whatever. And I just cried out to God and said, God, I give you my postpartum. I give you this journey, because I gave you my entire pregnancy, and I gave you this labor, and I gave you. And so somehow these girls are healthy and strong and meeting so many new levels of amazingness. Like their pediatrician has already said they've already gone back to their birth weight. Raylan is like 4 ounces over. It usually takes 2 weeks. They are a week old tomorrow. These girls are strong, and God is so good to them and to me. And I've just been in a bubble. A Jesus bubble is what I called it a long time ago, but it's a Jesus bubble. I didn't know how bad it could have been. I didn't know how much He saved me from. And I'm still sitting here not really fully recognizing how my laundry's getting done, how I'm getting food, how people keep showing up with clothes for me that fit me well and don't make me feel uncomfortable. How I'm able to leave my girls in another room and not be upset. My prayer last night was that I would hold them loosely, because I want to hold them tight. I want to hold them so tight and never let them go and not sleep or eat. But I can't do that. I have to let them. I have to let God be my everything, not them. Because God was my everything before, and He's going to be my everything now and forever. And He's taking care of us so well. He's gone before us. I'm just so grateful. We're going to the Echo today, and I'm praying for just this supernatural, like, where did this problem come from? Where did it go? We're not actually concerned about it at all. Even if it was an issue that hasn't been resolved yet, it's super, super common among preemies, and they develop it, the healing part of it, on their own once they're developed. But since she's a week ahead in her food, and she's 4 ounces over her birth weight, I think we're gonna find some more of God. We're gonna find more of God in every ounce of this. I needed to sit in my closet for a second to think about all this and to keep documenting it, because I am kind of losing time. I'm not super sure what's going on. I feel like yesterday was the day that these girls were born, but this was the day that my water broke. This was the day I was waiting on labor to really start. My water had already broken. And tomorrow is their 1 week birthday. And my sister is coming tonight, late at night, and she's finally gonna get to meet her nieces, and she's so excited. I feel so good. I even feel pretty healed. I don't feel that uncomfortable. I'm taking Motrin now, that's it. How close were we to having a vaginal birth that could have led our girls in the NICU?
So close.
That just baffles me. And I was seeing it as a failure on my half, but it was a saving grace. I look at the incision a lot differently now.
It makes it easier to look at, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Hey. Come see the little ones.
And he's one of them. Well, this. Look, it's so small. Oh, good morning. This Raylan.
Look at that. She already knows.
Come here, angel face. Come here, angel face. She's eaten more recently, so she'll be feeling
Sweet babes. You're such a little small baby.
Meeting Auntie Kinsey.
Oh, dear
But she
boy.
praises Jesus.
Don't scratch your head. It's too precious.